The NBA is chock full of point guard talent this season. From young players taking another leap in their game to veteran guards continuing their consistent play, the league is at no shortage of good point guards. And to be honest, this is arguably the most deep and stacked that the point guard position has been in NBA history. So naturally today I'll be ranking them all on their play so far this season. This list is for the most part based on these players' play halfway through this season and how talented I think that these players are right now. With that being said, let's rapid fire the honorable mentions, which are, in no particular order, Darius Garland, Jamal Murray, Jrue Holiday, James Harden, Tyrese Halliburton, and Tyrese Maxey. I think that the only players here that could reasonably be in the top 10 are Tyrese Halliburton and Tyrese Maxey. In the first half of last season, Halliburton was playing phenomenal. I think we all remember his run in the in-season tournament last year, where he was shooting lights-out percentages, scoring phenomenally, and was arguably the best playmaker in the league. However, since his hamstring injury at the beginning of 2024 and post-All-Star break, he really hasn't looked like the same player, and I'm beginning to think that his play at the beginning of last season was just a flash in the pan. I was hopeful that with a whole summer to rehab, he'd come back looking like a top 5 point guard in the league. However, he's looked really rough so far, especially to start the season. His three-point shot has seemingly vanished, his assist numbers, while still very respectable, are down from last year. And with how talented the league is, I just don't think he's doing enough to crack the top 10 list so far this season. As for Tyrese Maxey, on a 76ers team that's been riddled with injuries and inconsistent play, Maxey has looked really good so far. Through 23 games, he's putting up averages of 26 points per game, 3.7 rebounds, and 5.4 assists on decent efficiency. His efficiency has dipped a bit from last year, which is understandable, as there has been a lot more defensive attention on him, with Embiid and PG missing games. He's also shown some improvement on the defensive end, as he's averaging 2 steals per game. But overall, Maxey is essentially the same player that he was last year, which is an all-star caliber player, but it's still not enough for me to put him in the top 10 on this list. Now with that being said, let's get started with number 10, Trae Young. Trae has taken a step back this year in terms of scoring, as his efficiency from the field and from 3 was really rough to begin the year. However, his playmaking is still phenomenal, and I think he's super slept on when it comes to the discussion of the league's best playmakers. He's putting up 22 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 12 assists. Now, like I said, his efficiency really isn't where it needs to be right now, even though it's picked up as of late, and obviously his defense is still, for lack of a better word, absolute poverty. But because of his playmaking and his still somewhat respectable scoring volume, he finds himself at number 10 on this list. At number 9, I have Damian Lillard. While on paper Dame's numbers are comparable to what they were last year, he's looking a lot more comfortable on the court, especially in the minutes that he's sharing with Giannis. He's averaging 26, 4.5, and 8 assists per game on 45, 37, 92 splits, which is really good to see. Especially after how rough of a first season he had in Milwaukee, I thought Dame might have been WASH washed. However, he's come out this season and quieted a lot of those narratives, and while I don't think he's quite the player he was in Portland, which, again, for a player of his age is fine, father time always wins, I still think he's a top 9 point guard in the league and could potentially help lead Milwaukee pretty deep into the postseason. At number 8, I have De'Aaron Fox. Now, I think I'm going to make a whole separate video about how poverty the Kings are as a franchise, especially after firing Mike Brown. But Fox, as an individual player and individual talent, is looking about as good as he ever has, with averages of 26, 5, and 6 on 48, 32, 80 splits. Fox is putting up another really good campaign this season. He's a great scorer, a serviceable playmaker, a solid shooter, and a really respectable defender for his position. He's the best thing to happen to the Kings franchise in a while, and I really think that he could blossom elsewhere. However, the front office's inability to surround him with a good supporting cast is wasting valuable years of his prime, and I really just think it's time for him to have a change of scenery. At number 7, I have Cade Cunningham. Going into the season, I didn't expect the Pistons to be quite as bad as they were last season, but I also didn't expect much out of them for this season. However, Cade is leading this team to a very respectable record, as they've already won more games through 30 games of this season as they did all of last season, which is insane, and they're shaping up to secure at the very least a play-in spot. Cade himself is averaging career highs across the board and has just looked really, really solid overall, and is making a case to be a first-time All-Star this season. He's averaging almost a double-double on the season while scoring super efficiently and being a respectable defender on the other end of the court. All this combined lands him at number 7 on this list. Number 6, I've got Ja Morant. Now, Ja has returned this year and looked super solid. He's averaging 21, 4, and 8 on good efficiency so far. Now, his raw averages are down this year from what they were last year and the year before, but I really just think that's because he's averaging fewer minutes per game and the fewest minutes of his career as a whole, as he's playing just under 28 per game. Despite this, he's leading the Grizzlies to a top seed in the West, as they currently sit at 22-10 with the second seed in the conference. Morant is still as electrifying as ever on the offensive end, as he's still the slasher and finisher he's always been, while also being a great playmaker. He's looking super slick so far, and while his stats don't quite stack up to the other point guards on this list, I think that as a talent, he should land around here on this list. Number 5, I've got LaMelo Ball. Now, LaMelo has taken a leap as a scorer this season, while also continuing to be a phenomenal playmaker, and has really been arguably the most entertaining player in the league right now. He's putting up 35 and 7 on solid efficiency. However, it's the degree of difficulty of the shots that he's taking and making that is truly impressive. From one-legged step-back contested threes to throwing lobs to his teammates from half court, his play is just simply electrifying. Now, this leads to his turnovers being a bit higher than I'd like to see, and also his efficiency has suffered a bit because of the degree of difficulty of the shots that he's taking. But when his team is playing for literally nothing this season, I'm willing to overlook that. And as a talent, I think that we all see him as a top 5 point guard in the league right now. At least I do. At number 4 is Jalen Brunson. Brunson has ascended into a top 10 to 15 player in the league over these past 2 seasons. His raw numbers have regressed a bit this year compared to last year, which makes sense now that he's sharing shots with Cat, but his efficiency is up a bit, and he's still the same player that he was last year. He's led the Knicks to being a top 3 team in the East, and a team that looks like they could genuinely challenge the Celtics to come out of the East. He's an efficient and aggressive scorer, a great playmaker, and a really good shooter from behind the arc. And honestly, he has a very real case to be top 3 on this list. But as a talent, I just don't know if I'm ready to put him above number 3, Stephen Curry. Now, it's very clear that Curry has regressed a bit over these past few seasons, and the part of his game that this has really affected is his consistency. He'll have games where he scores 10 points, followed by a 35-piece, and then back down to 13 points. He's averaging more assists than last season, and his efficiency is essentially the same. However, his scoring numbers are down, which somewhat makes sense as he's taking less shots this year, but the inconsistency is just really concerning. I still think that at his best, he's better than Brunson as a talent, as he's shown sporadically throughout the season, but if his inconsistencies remain this glaring, I could definitely see him sliding down 1 or 2 spots by the end of the season. But I'm still just not ready to put the greatest point guard of all time lower than this spot at this point of the season. At number 2, I have Luka Doncic. I think that at his best, he's easily a top 3 player in the league, only behind Jokic and Giannis. However, he started off the season pretty slow. Now, this is obviously relative to Luka's standards, so even with this slow start, he's putting up averages of 28, 8, and 8 on 46, 35, 77 splits, which is actually nuts that these numbers are below average for Luka, but that's just the caliber of player he is. Quiet as kept, his defense is also looking better than it was last season. He's still not great or anything, don't get me wrong, but it at least looks like he's giving more of an effort on that side of the floor. I think that if Luka continues to play himself back into form, he'll finish the year on top of this list again, but for now, he's here at 2. And that just leaves number 1, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Mr. Consistent, Mr. Canada, number 2 in MVP voting last season. Shai's putting up averages of 31, 5.5, and 6 on the season on 52, 35, 88 splits. Now, he's led the Thunder to the number 1 seed in the West so far, without his second best player playing at Chet Holmgren. Additionally, he also gets after it on the defensive end with really active hands and jumping into passing lanes, and more than anything else, he is so consistent. He's basically a guaranteed 30 points every game, and he does this in a variety of ways. He's great at finishing around the rim, a good mid-range shooter, and a solid three-point shooter, so overall just a great three-level scorer, while also being able to slow down the pace of the game and get to the free throw line at an insane rate. All this has earned him the title of the best point guard in the league so far this season. But let me know what you all think about this list. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? And to quote Stephen A. Smith, this list is fluid, and this obviously is just my opinion. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when I drop my next video. Now with that being said, have a great day, y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.